For 10 years, the Star-Spangled Banner waved over a building in Accra, Ghana. Inside, a portrait of Barack Obama hung on the wall. Consular officers in suits stamped passports. There were armed guards at the gate. There were official opening hours. And every day, hopeful citizens walked in, paid thousands of dollars, and walked out with a visa to the United States. It looked like an embassy. It operated like an embassy. It was protected by the police like an embassy. There was just one problem. The United States government had no idea it existed. This wasn't a back alley scam. This was a 2-story building that operated in broad daylight 3 mornings a week for a decade. How does a criminal gang counterfeit an entire diplomatic mission? How do you fake a slice of American soil? And most importantly, how did they get away with it for so long? Welcome to the story of the greatest diplomatic con in history. Summer 2016. The U.S. State Department receives a tip. It's vague, but it's alarming.
The package is
Intelligence suggests that a criminal network isn't just forging documents. They are issuing them from a physical location. So, the U.S. Embassy in Ghana, the real one, launches a joint task force. They call it Operation Spartan Vanguard. They expect to find a printing press in a basement, maybe a guy with a laptop in a cafe. Instead, the SWAT team pulls up to a faded pink 2-story stucco building. It looks like a house that hasn't been painted in 20 years. It's flanked by a dress shop on one side and an apartment block on the other. The roads are dirt, the paint is peeling. It looks nothing like the fortress-like compounds of a real U.S. embassy. It looks like a ruin. But when the agents kick down the door, the laughter stops. Inside, they find the tools of a bureaucracy. 150 passports from 10 different countries, legitimate government-issued visa stamps, laptops, smartphones, and dress suits. They hadn't just found a forgery ring. They had found a fully operational alternative government office. And as the investigators dug deeper, they realized this wasn't just about the US. They were also running a fake Dutch embassy. The question wasn't what they found. The question was, how on earth did anyone fall for this?
To understand this scam, you have to understand the psychology of authority. If a man in a t-shirt asks for your passport, you say no. If a man in a suit standing under a flag with a portrait of the president behind him asks for your passport, you hand it over. The mastermind behind this operation, a partnership between organized crime rings in Turkey and corrupt Ghanaian officials, understood this perfectly. They didn't need to build a fortress, they just needed the symbols of power. Step 1. The cast. The consular officers were not Americans. They were Turkish citizens who spoke English and Dutch. They were dressed in sharp suits. They were arrogant. They were dismissive. Step 2. The props. They hung the portrait of President Obama in the waiting room. They played American news on the TV. They flew the flag outside. Step 3. The protection. This is where the story gets dark. You might wonder, didn't the police notice the fake embassy? Oh, they noticed, but the gang didn't hide from the police. They hired the police.
So, how did the business model actually work? You couldn't just walk in off the street. If you knocked on the door of the pink building unannounced, you'd be turned away. This was an appointment-only service. The gang employed a network of fixers and advertisers across West Africa, in Togo, the Ivory Coast, and rural Ghana. They targeted people who were desperate, uneducated, and disconnected from the digital world. The cost? $6,000. In a region where the average daily income can be less than $5, this was a life savings. This was family land sold. This was debt that would last a generation. And here's the twist that confused investigators the most. Sometimes the visas were real.
10 years. Let that sink in. Presidents changed, technology changed, the world changed, and for a decade, the pink building kept stamping passports. But the real reason it lasted 10 years wasn't ignorance, it was corruption. The investigation revealed that the operation was heavily protected. The gang paid off local chiefs, they paid off immigration officers, they paid off the police. It was an open secret, a theater play that everyone was paid to applaud. But every house of cards has to fall eventually. As the years went on, the operation got sloppy. Too many people were getting turned away at international airports with visas that didn't scan correctly. The whispers turned into shouts. Moments before the raid, the main consular officers, the Turkish ringleaders, vanished. They slipped out the back door and disappeared into the chaos of the city. They had been outsmarted by a group of guys in a rundown house.
But there is one final detail. A detail that the State Department didn't put in their press release. When investigative journalists actually flew to Accra, they found neighbors who had lived there for 30 years. Neighbors who said, "We never saw an American flag. We never saw a line of people." The truth is even more vile than the scam itself. The scammers used the symbols of the US government to steal from the poor. Then, the US government used the symbols of the scammers to tell a story of victory to the world. In a world built on symbols, the truth is often the only thing that isn't for sale.